Hey guys, welcome to another video on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel. I wanted to take a moment just to step back and just breathe and reflect on the month that was April. March was a bit weird because it's hard to really get a gauge on where things are at because it's not really a big sample size. But I think when you look at what's happened in March of this season and now April, I think it's a good chance to just take a breath and reflect on what has happened. And maybe we can pick out some trends that we might be noticing, and I'm going to get this to be a very interactive video and get you involved towards the end. Also, there will be an accompanying article to this video that you can check out on the website, thanks to Josh Gulabowski, who wrote the piece. So let's have a look at it. So April, we play 4 matches. We start off with the Dockers match. That was probably the first time in the year where we saw our scoring power limited. That was an arm wrestle, let's be honest. First time we'd won at the Oval. Got a little bit lucky towards the end. Defended really well. I think at that point, the sentiment was that our defense was holding up. Obviously, we hadn't yet tipped over the injury scale to the point where it is today, at the end of April, start of May. But I thought that was a really solid win, considering how Fremantle are able to restrict teams from opening the game up. Then we moved into Adelaide at Marvel Stadium, which was obviously the first loss of the season. Lost by 2 points, really had the game under our control. We've obviously lost to Geelong since. Adelaide was one that was frustrating. They were coming off a period of time where they haven't won a game, and they just needed to win a game. A finals contender, if we're having this conversation at the start of the year. And I don't know how the year will play out, but I still think they're good enough to play finals. And then obviously we have a really strong performance the week after at Marvel Stadium, same time against the Giants, where we start to see the premiership quarter and remnants of that comeback. And then obviously last week we have Geelong, where we rue missed opportunities. And so if we look at the losses, both of them are similar in that we generate a lot of scoring shots, a high level amount of scoring shots, 28 against the Crows, 30 against the Cats, very similar, 14-14, 15-15, ball game, lose the game. So in our losses, what am I noticing? Well, I'm noticing, I think losses or wins, I'm noticing our scoring ability is definitely increasing from what I'm used to seeing with this team. That was one of the question marks going into the season. It seemed like our defense had proven itself, so to speak, last year. I thought our midfield proved itself at times last year as well. The forward line, given we have 2 Coleman medalists in there, were we going to be able to create a better operating forward line? So, in theory, we are scoring more. I guess the issue is we are also giving up more scores than what we've seen before. Now, that is probably a byproduct of the way in which we set up with our team defense. It's a little bit more further up the ground. We've played 2 teams who have shown us their ability to score off turnover that beat us in Adelaide, which is a team that is not a team that I'm familiar with doing that too often. And the Cats, who is a team that I'm familiar with doing that because, they're undefeated. They've been premiers only a few seasons ago. So I'm noticing that. I'm noticing, again, the resilience of the group that we saw get through the rough patch last year and find their form and find their momentum. I'm definitely noticing that resilience is still there. I guess the recency bias of the Geelong game and making sure we finish that strong is there. I think the way that we finished the Fremantle game and just kept going, that was there. Adelaide was disappointing because it almost felt like we had done enough and then took the foot off a little bit. And then the Crows came away and pinched that one late. But generally speaking, we have made it hard for teams to beat us. They've had to be at their best to beat us. So I think that bodes well. So where are we at from what we've seen in April? What did we like? What worked and what didn't work? And what did we like? What did we not like? It's really hard to say right now. I think having experienced the last few years in particular, 2022, it looked like we were going really well, but it was, upon reflection, it's hard to draw the conclusion that things are okay. 2023, it looked completely dead, but obviously it was hard to draw conclusions. So 2024, it looks like and it feels like we are going in the right direction. I've definitely noticed a lift in the standards from our leaders, in particular, president, CEO, coach, even captain. Maybe we'll take a minute to talk about Patrick Cripps. He's obviously playing some of the best football he's played in his career. He's playing a more mature game. He's not necessarily stuffing the stat sheet like he used to. It seems like his possessions have more gravity to them. He's making players around him better. I'm seeing him block for teammates more than I think I have. And, having said that, he had a really, statistically, a really great game against the Giants. He had 39 touches. So there's a sprinkle of that in there. But I'm definitely seeing a maturity from the captain. When it comes to the coach, we've just seen him call a loss against Geelong by a couple of goals as unacceptable, noting the factors that we have with the side right now, those who aren't available, those who are available, their experience, etc., etc. And I'm pleased that we are not looking to make excuses. I like the strong language. I like the balance between brutal language and honest language and supportive language. I think there's a fine line when it comes to how Vossi speaks publicly with the team. And the reason I say that is because if you go too hard in the media, you open up for the fans to go hard. And we don't need too much to go hard at this team. That is something that I've experienced being a supporter of this club. So, how that plays out, we will see. I'd like to think that what we're seeing is a lifting of the standards. Last year, it sort of seemed like the boys needed some support because they were going so poorly. When it came to the outcomes, maybe they were doing, a lot right on game day in the four walls as to what they were looking to do, but we just weren't getting the results. So they just needed some support. Whereas now it looks like we've gone from, listen, we can win the premiership. We might win the premiership to we can win the premiership. And I feel that belief. I'm starting to truly believe it. I think for many years I had suppressed the thought of a premiership. And I know it's, we're going into round 8. I'm not talking about us definitely being there, but I do feel like what I've seen from the competition in the first 7 rounds in particular, I think that our best stacks up thereabouts. The injury concern's definitely been one, and that came to light, I would say, in April. We had a few in the preseason. Obviously, we lose Jack Silvani. Early days we lose Sam Doherty. Those are 2 guys. Well, Doc in particular, definitely a first-choice player. I believe Jack Silvani is a first-choice player, but if he's not, then he's not far off. So, we have that. And then I think it took until April until the injury started mounting. We lose Sard and McGovern in a single game against the Crows, which was frustrating. And those are 2 good users of the ball, good readers of the play, good defenders. Sard's an all-Australian level player. McGovern, when he's fit and healthy, you can make the case that he might be as well. So you lose some leadership down there. And is that really the answer to why we're conceding as many scores as we have? Is it because we've got a little bit more of an unsettled backline? I think that's part of the equation. I do also think that there's something to do with the way we act when we have the ball in hand. And I know this might sound weird, but the way we enter the ball inside 50, we've spoken about it on a number of the shows that we do on the channel. The entries, when they're shallow and they're turned over, you've already given your opposition's defense 1 line too many away. And then they're starting from a more dominant position on the field. And so I guess we're working that out. Chera we've lost for a couple of weeks. It looks like we might get him back start of May against Collingwood, so that might help in there. We obviously also got Walsh back. So for all that we've lost, we have gained. But I'm hoping that the worst of the injury list is here and it's done. Through injury, there is opportunity. We've had the chance to see more of Lockie Cowan, more of Jack Carroll, these types, these younger players, more of Lewis Young. as well, who are probably not first choice players if everyone were to be available. But the reality is everyone truly available at any given time? Probably not, particularly not when it comes to Carlton. It seems like I don't remember the last time there were no players on the injury list. And is that reasonable to expect, no players on an injury list? Probably not. So you're always going to be up against it in that regard. There's always going to be someone missing, it would seem, more times than not. So there is that. I do like that we have not made excuses. I do like that it hasn't been spoken about. It's probably been acknowledged inside. It's frustrating, but turning the attention to what is in our control is a winning mentality. And that's why I like to see it. We could sit here and talk about who's not there and get down in the dumps about it. But is that going to help the situation or not? Delisting and sacking people before a season ends is not going to help. Those decisions get made at the end of the year, so we can just park those conversations until then, because that's the only time that anything can really be actioned. I think the coach is the only person that I've seen, and obviously administration, leave a club mid-season. Very rarely do you see a player sacked, delisted mid-season. So those are conversations I don't like to buy into. I don't know why we draw into those conclusions, but whatever. 100,000 members, that also happened at the end of April. So that's a very exciting time for the club. That's a very momentous time for the club. We are seemingly starting to see the pendulum swing. Reason why I say that is because the last 20 matches of this team that we've watched, we've won. And so it feels like the most enjoyable time as a Carlton supporter for me. I don't know if that's the case for you, especially if you've seen premierships, but I'm okay with where we're at the moment. I think we're going okay. I think we're generating enough opportunities to win every game that we've played. I think the ones where we haven't won, we've let ourselves down with our execution. And maybe if we execute better in front of the sticks, that allows us to paper over the defensive cracks that we're showing. So I am mindful of that. So we're going okay, in my view, with so much more to improve on. We've got to get 6, 7, maybe even 8 guys into this side playing consistent footy again. We've got to manage their programs and make sure that we can get them right and playing, consistently and backing themselves up every week. And we enter into a really tough stretch right now, which we'll talk about in a moment. What about some individuals? So this is the first question I'd like to pose to you. Who are some of the individuals that you have noticed in the first 7 games that have really taken a step forward? I mentioned Patrick Cripps earlier in the video. I think this is the best I've seen him play. This is the most mature football I've seen him play. The stats will back up that he's actually performing better at this point in the year than his Brownlow season, which is remarkable. So that's a positive. I like what we are seeing from Tom de Koning with his forward presence. First batch of games, we needed him as a sole ruck. I thought he did a really good job. Pito comes into the side. That brings with it another conversation around the 2-ruck system. The first game probably wasn't the best for it. I don't think it was the worst either. Pito's first game as well, after little to no preseason action. And then the last 2 games, Geelong and the Giants, who are both top 4 sides, we've seen the 2 rucks as a system work with effect for getting our stoppage game back to where it was at the top back end of last year. So the conversation you see in the external is about, okay, well, Pito's in, but the turnover game has gone down. I'd be curious to see what the turnover game looks like when McGovern and Sard are in there. Sard in particular, the reality is this is a high-level player who's getting the ball 20-plus times a game minimum. McGovern, not dissimilar, 18-plus times minimum. Also, his ability to intercept is at a really high level. And when you lose those players, it's hard to turn offense into defense when you lose, 2 of your best players in your defense who can read the play, intercept, and then go and, kick the ball effectively. So I don't want to say it's just a personnel issue as to why the turnover game's dipped, but I do feel like that is a big part of it. Lewis Young, bless him, and Lockie Cowan compared to Mitch McGovern and Adam Sard, I think we're talking about two completely different sets of players with different sets of experience. So I'm not writing that off just yet. I want to see what it looks like when those boys are back. The forwards, I think we're seeing the best of Harry Mackay. I think he's been a real positive. Said it in the season preview. It was between him and Patrick Cripps that I felt would win the John Nichols medal. If I was to guess at the end of round 7, I would say Patrick Cripps is leading. Probably, Harry would probably be second or third, to be fair. I think he's had a really strong start to the year. His body is moving with real force and confidence. He's had good goal-kicking games. He's had a few moments which we know are going to come along the way. You know, we know the process that he's going through. It hasn't been achieved yet, but he's going through the process of changing up that routine. So I think that's been a step in the right direction. The small forwards, some games I feel like there's too many of them. Some games I feel like there's not enough of them. Some games I feel like we just miss Jesse Motlop and Lockie Fogarty so much. And some games I feel like it wouldn't matter if they were there. So I don't really have a read on that. There are times where I feel that their positioning at the drop of the ball is not consistent enough, where I think it can be and probably should be. But I also don't know the intricacies of the game plan, of their instructions on game day. So I'm mindful of that. But that still is an area of concern. The injection of Elijah Hollins into the side in that half forward line, I think, has been a positive. I think we're also starting to see Matt Cottrell generate some nice entries for us to our forwards. I would like to see us trust the two of them more when we move the ball forward, which I think will help prevent us with the shallow entries that we have. The quicker and the deeper we get that ball into our forward 50, I think the better we'll be able to lock it in there, and the harder it will be for us to get scored off on the rebound. We've seen Jacob Wiedering inserted back into the side. He's, another reminder why we need him in the side and how he anchors the defence. And that's about it. Obviously, Sam Walsh comes in and he's been phenomenal. I think the last few games we've started to see a bit more of Matt Kennedy's ability to be a utility player. He played a bit more forward of centre first few games. Then out of necessity had to play a little bit more behind the ball. I think the last few games in particular, he's found himself more on ball / behind the ball, bit everywhere. And I think we're closer than we've been to finding out what he's going to be for this group moving forward. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Chera returns to the side and how that affects his role. But all in all, 5-2 after 7 games. That's, you're taking it. Of course, you're taking it. We get into May, challenging month. They're all challenging, but starts with Collingwood, massive blockbuster game. Then we start talking about Melbourne. Then we start talking about Sydney. Then we start talking about Port Adelaide. So, again, 4 clubs, finalists from 2023. Away games in there. We've got a short turnaround in there after Collingwood, 6-day break. Again, then we play Melbourne. So, some challenges in there, but I like it. I like the fact that we are playing tough teams, primetime slots, big crowds. It's the perfect preparation for finals. And ultimately, if we are good enough, then we will do what we need to do against these sides. How will it play out? I don't know. I don't know how it plays out. I just want to see us get another layer of health into the side. I want to see us get more consistency with our defence. And it starts one game at a time against the Pies. So that's April. What about you? What have you observed over the last month? Or if you want to just extend it to the first couple of months of the season, you're welcome to. What have you observed? What are your thoughts on where we're at, where we've got to go, what needs to be tidied up? And maybe something that I've missed in this video, you can detail it in the comments as well. And we'll chat about it there. So have a read of Josh's article as well. He's got a few different points to me that are interesting to read through, and we'll go from there. Go Blues.